The Prime Minister speaking after 10 o'clock last night about the seriousness of this whole situation.
Yes, and soon after the Prime Minister spoke, because he wouldn't talk about any potential UK military involvement, we got that confirmation from the Defence Secretary, John Healey, that the UK did indeed play a part in helping to, we think, bring down a number of missiles. And we believe, although the UK government hasn't confirmed it, that it was the involvement of RAF Typhoon aircraft along with a tanker support aircraft over the region that helped Israel out in going after these missiles. A real, very significant barrage of ballistic missiles into Israel, two separate waves of missile attacks following about 20 minutes after each other. And you can see from the images there the speed that some of these ballistic missiles came down. We understand that Iran used some of its very latest hypersonic missiles. Now, what the Israeli government has said is that they, with the help of their aerial defence array, which is the Iron Dome system you were talking about, but a range of other missile defence systems that are aligned to this defence array, managed to intercept the vast majority of these ballistic missiles. There were very worrying images, though, of missiles impacting the ground. What we understand is the sophisticated way in which this missile defence system works is that it pinpoints the trajectory of ballistic missiles, and those that it deems are not going to affect populated areas, are going to land in the open, are just allowed to impact the ground. The missiles from the defence system are very expensive, very precious to the Israelis. They want to use them on the ballistic missiles that they believe are going to impact populated areas.
We go to Eylon Levy. And Eylon is the former Israeli government spokesperson. Eylon, I know there's so much to talk about in relation to this conflict and what's going on. But what did you make of what Alistair Burt was saying there in terms of economic costs, not only to the region, but to the world?
As well, of allowing Iranian aggression to go unchecked. I don't know whether your viewers understand. The Houthi pirates, who are backed, funded, and trained by Iran, now control access to the Red Sea. They have completely blockaded Israel's port of Eilat, massively restricted ships going through the Suez Canal, and that is sending commodity prices soaring. Yemen is now controlled by an Iranian-backed terrorist regime called the Houthis, against whom the UK has also conducted targeted strikes, and they're causing commodity prices around the world to go up. We're dealing now with the consequences of Iranian aggression going unchecked, and it's that Iranian aggression that needs to be put back in a box.
Alistair Burt was saying there that pretty much most people agree that there will not be a military solution to this crisis. Do you take that view?
Well, look, the last Lebanon war ended in 2006 with a diplomatic resolution. It was called UN Security Council Resolution 1701. It ordered Hezbollah to disarm and back off away from the Israeli border. That was a political solution. It was never enforced, ever, over the last 18 years. As a result, southern Lebanon is now controlled by an Iranian-backed proxy army that has fired over 9,000 rockets into Israel, displaced over 60,000 Israelis. They've been homeless for the last year because the Hezbollah decided to flout a UN resolution and has been shooting rockets at Israel. And so Israel finds itself in a position now in the north saying, we've been warning Hezbollah for a year, back off or we will have to push you away. You didn't back off and now we have to push you away. But obviously we want a diplomatic resolution, right? We do not want a war.
But Eylon, who was in charge of implementing that diplomatic resolution? In other words, was there an outside force, UN, whatever?
The UN.
Yeah.
The UN, UNIFIL, UN peacekeepers on the ground who did absolutely nothing. You can look at their Twitter. They haven't mentioned the word Hezbollah once in all the years they have had a Twitter account.
But
we want to have a diplomatic resolution, right?
Yes,
we don't want to war.
Yes, but my question remains, if I may. You know, this may be true. They flouted that 2006 resolution from the United Nations. But by sending in these walkie-talkie explosive devices that were indiscriminate, sending in these pages, by taking a different, I suppose, risk approach to the conflict in the area, because you've moved your attention away from Gaza to the north of Israel, do you think that that is going to resolve that issue that hasn't been, as you say, upheld by the United Nations? Or do you think it's going to just exacerbate it?
Now, hang on. First of all, you called that pager attack indiscriminate. That was, without a doubt, not only the most precise attack in military history, but the most precise attack in military future. If that was really Israel, it made thousands of military communications devices supplied by a terrorist organization exclusively to its terror operatives explode in 99% of cases when they were held up against the terrorists' faces. This is proper James Bond stuff. It is the opposite of indiscriminate. It is far into science fiction levels of precision.
It was interesting in that statement from the Prime Minister last night that he was very worried about any sort of miscalculation in this high-stakes situation that we see ourselves in, obviously in relation to perhaps the loss of life of Israeli civilians from these missiles coming in from Iran. But my question to you is about any possible retaliation from Israel to nuclear infrastructure in Iran, because we understand President Putin has recently been sharing his coveted nuclear secrets with the regime. You know, how dangerous would it be if they were to go after that infrastructure?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, pretty dangerous, but I think Iran has been utterly humiliated. Its forward defense, its proxies, as you've described, Hezbollah and Hamas have been pretty much written down by the Israelis. It's now fired over 500 missiles at Israel, including the missiles you mentioned in April this year, and virtually none have got through and haven't been damaged. And the last time the Israelis fired one missile at Iran's nuclear facility in April, it got through. So I think Iran's in a difficult position. It's made some strategic errors. It gave a whole lot of ballistic missiles to the Russians a few weeks ago, possibly in return, as you suggest, for nuclear technology. But I think Iran absolutely knows that probably nuclear is the key to this. And Israel has nuclear weapons and Iran doesn't. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Israeli response is to take down those research labs and sites around Isfahan, which it hit last time. And Iran, without a nuclear potential, is in a very weak place. It has few allies, and the Americans and ourselves have demonstrated our resolve. So I think another strategic error by the Ayatollahs in Iran, and I don't really see, they've thrown the kitchen sink at Israel, and it's sort of disappeared over the skies of the Middle East. So I think the Ayatollahs will have a lot to think about today in Tehran.
So by that analysis, then, you don't necessarily anticipate a tit-for-tat response. You think that perhaps this was a flexing of the muscles from Iran, but they may just continue to use their proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, rather than directly strike Israel again?
Well, absolutely. I think they've invested so much time, effort and resources in their terror groups that you mentioned that actually their own conventional defense, they haven't focused on it. And it's all very old type of equipment that they've got there, which is why in the past they haven't been, their air defense hasn't been up to taking Israeli missiles down. And the ballistic missiles that they fired at Israel, are fairly old fashioned, which is why they've been taken down so easily. So I think Iran is full of a lot of demonstrative verbiage, as it were, but its military capability, as we've seen, and as Israel said, and I would back up, Israel's military capability is far superior, despite the fact Israel is a tiny country compared to Iran. So, yeah, I expect Israel to respond in some manner, and I expect it to be surgical. But I don't, the Iranians are running out of options to escalate, and they don't have that ultimate escalation, a nuclear weapon that they can use.
About the ground incursion into Lebanon, do you see this being resolved quickly? Israel saying that they want their residents to be able to return to the north of Israel, but it feels a long way from peace in that area.
Well, I think militarily, what the Israelis are doing on their northern border is the right thing to do. It appears to me that they're putting in special forces and small groups to go and clear the border. so that there is a buffer zone, if you like, between Lebanon and Israel. That probably will take a bit of time, I would have thought, possibly a few weeks. But Hezbollah has been, the head has been taken off its snake, and they are not the organization they were 2 weeks ago. So, I think Israel has demonstrated how to deal with terror groups. Admittedly, they've had pretty wide rules of engagement, and it's an existential fight for Israel. So you're not surprised. People shouldn't be surprised at what the Israelis are doing. They are fighting for their very survival, and actually they're probably showing the world this is probably the way to do it. And I think it's very important that the US in particular and ourselves keep supporting them, because that, I think, is the way to prevent further escalation in the Middle East. We don't hear a lot of the other Middle East countries coming to the support of Iran. They are certainly all sitting back, and that's really how it should be. Iran must realize that it is banging against a door that it just can't open.